Hello and welcome back to Podcasting as Praxis. I'm David, my pronouns are he and him.
I'm James, my pronouns are they and them.
I'm Jamie, my pronouns are he and him.
And I'm Rob, mine are he and him.
It's nice to be
back. And he's back, ladies and gentlemen. The deep sighs have returned to this podcast.
Yeah.
Could whoever's been using the soundboard in David's absence hit the party like popper button?
Yeah, for those of you in our yeah, David still lives. He's still around. For those of you in the betting pool, for those of you who had him down for this week, congratulations, you are victors.
I refuse to go before Kissinger. By this metric, I will live forever.
Yeah, it became immortal. Fantastic.
We have got just a few little news nuggets, I think, and then Rob has a horrible article which he hasn't even fucking shown me yet, so God help us. So
it's really
Rob,
good. It's an old favorite. It's someone who's about to be, I think maybe even about to become like an unofficial reporter for this podcast.
Oh, that annoyingly narrows it down, but doesn't.
Yeah. Anyway, speculate later. And speaking of speculation, let's talk about some stuff. So, according to an investigation by The Guardian and several universities and a bunch of local journalists in South America, it turns out that buying carbon offset credits is actually mostly composed of flim-flam. And they don't actually work. I know this is going to come as a real shock to you.
Fucked up if true.
They did a big big research piece that was launched, I think, last week. Like 90% of the rainforest carbon credits that are approved by a company called Verra, which is one of the world's largest leading carbon standards and sort of marketplaces for carbon credits. Like 90% of them are most likely phantom credits that don't actually reduce any carbon emissions or don't offset any emissions anyway, which is bad news for, among others, Disney, Shell, good news, Gucci, and also the band Pearl Jam. So, Eddie Vedder, your time is up.
Rob, I'm stunned and shocked by this because you notoriously did that great long episode about how carbon credits are good actually and how everything's fine, and I just to find that we were so wrong about this is just staggering.
I know.
Yeah, I didn't know Pearl Jam were oil barons.
Well, I mean, in my notes I've written them down as Pear Jam, so maybe it's a whole different band that's just slightly less familiar to all of us. But basically how Verra works is basically like a project or another third party devises a project to save rainforest somewhere, and they will say, well, we're
Bolsonaro.
Well, I mean, he's been shot with all the disease guns. Maybe he does. Maybe the Cubans did get to him. Man, where did Havana Syndrome go? I miss Havana Syndrome. That was such a fun time. Does anybody
all
have
inside
that gun?
Bolsonaro?
That's why he's in the States. He's currently shaking the hands of CIA agents and absorbing the Havana Syndrome just by proxy. Unfortunately, he's given him COVID as he does it, so it swings around about, really.
I mean, it's like a 50-50 shot. He's either in a hospital or he's at a KFC, so far as I know, since he, got the fuck out of Dodge.
Well, KFC is very close to CIA, so, I'm not surprised.
Or he could be at his fucking guest house or wherever he is. He sleeps in a big minion bed, do you?
Yeah. He's sleeping under his minion's bed sheet. Briefly on that note, though, I don't know if you saw, but Lula sacked the head of the armed forces and said, well, we can't trust you because the entirety of the military and the military police was weirdly absent on the day that they tried to do a January 6 in Brasilia. So, good stuff and things to write down in our notebook for when we're in charge.
I've got to say as well, calling it a January 6th is possibly even worse than how every fucking scandal gets gate on the end of it nowadays.
Well, I don't know what else to call it. It was just a couple of bozos.
I can't wait till we're having to someone goes, oh, did you see that January 6th the other day on August the 9th?
Jamie, you joke, but I legitimately heard on MSNBC January the 6th gate. I actually heard that being said.
Fuck, you should never cross the fucking streams like that. Jesus Christ.
But yeah, basically how these carbon credit things work or are supposed to work is essentially you or like a group of people, like an environmental project or I think maybe even Vera itself, like you start a project, you go and you say, well, we're going to conserve 100 hectares of rainforest. They then use like a formula devised by this company called Vera to say that this is, by doing this, we will save X tons of carbon emissions. This is independently audited, and then companies can buy the carbon credits or the emission credits resulting from this saving. Because basically the project says by saving these 100 hectares of rainforest and it not being cut down in the next, I can't remember the number of years, but it's usually like 70 or 100 years, this patch of rainforest will absorb this much CO2. Therefore, if it's not destroyed, there's this much carbon credit that can be offset by Pearl Jam or Disney or Shell or whoever.
I love this.
So this company makes the wiki then? Is that what you're telling me?
They have the magic formula. And they make the market.
The formula is step 3, ? Step 4, profit.
I was under the impression that, like what you were saying there, someone starts a project and just like these guys like make the wiki, and then the project doesn't have to actually happen because the carbon offset's already in place.
So far as like the thing in The Guardian said, like these projects, they have mostly taken place in some form or another. But, there have been some significant problems, like only a handful of them, when journalists went to check on sites, show evidence that like they have reduced deforestation. And most of the sites, because of course this is what you get when you financialize everything and turn it into horseshit, is what you do is you say, well, if we did conserve these 100 hectares of rainforest, otherwise next year or next week, they would be completely clear cut and like just gone completely. So, you should give us a very high number of credits because the or else situation is very dire. So I don't know how the math is done, but like the academics and the journalists that looked at this said that in general, the overstatement of the threat was by like 400%. Because like now you have a financial incentive to lie about the amount of carbon you save, right? Because if you say, well, we're going to save a huge amount, you can sell those amounts of credits to Eddie Vedder, which is a great deal. Except that you're not actually doing anything.
I do love, the whole thing's fucked because the fundamental premise is, hey, you know what? We were going to do this bad shit, but we're not going to do that bad shit now, which means you can do that bad shit instead. It's like, how is that helping? That the net increase of bad shit is still going up. Like, it's totally fucked.
Consider us lucky that they haven't yet figured out that they could go, well, if we like just don't do anything about climate change, it'll get worse and it'll kill this many million people. And then the carbon savings from the trees they would have like cut down in their life mean that we can like now burn another fucking like 200 hectares of rainforest every day.
The thing that gets me is mathematically, it's basically equivalent to going, hey, so we've got this car. It pollutes with, I don't know, like, let's just say for ridiculous sake, 20 tons of carbon. But now we rather than make that car, we're going to make this car instead, which only makes 10. So, there we go. We've got our own carbon credit like built into the car.
Well, and over the lifetime...
How is that any different?
Yeah, well, then over the lifetime of that car, you can say, well, actually, if it runs 10 years, we'll have saved, I don't know, 900 tons of carbon. So you can then sell that to Shell, and then they can build a new oil pipeline or something nice like that.
Oh, fuck. Hello, Elon. How you doing?
Yeah, that is exactly that's Tesla. But yeah, essentially, just to cover our ass, Vera put out a big statement saying, obviously, they don't agree with this. They say that
we did it.
No, Jamie, it was if we did it. It's just very soft.
Yeah, the CEO was wearing gloves while doing that presentation. It was really weird, actually. Yeah, just like we didn't really... we put it in the category of shit that should go away. So that's for this reason. So just as a small little bonus thing. At last year's big climate conference in Glasgow, the countries committed to, which was seen as like a landmark historic thing to do, they committed 12 billion to like future future-proofing forest, essentially. But there was a new article in Nature Communications, I think, that estimates it would cost about as much as 390 billion a year if we wanted to pay landowners to plant and protect enough trees by 2050 to reduce the amount of CO2 emissions necessary. So there's about a 380 billion funding gap, even if this shit was real, which it isn't.
Rob, sorry, what is future-proofing a forest? That to me sounds like putting in some like hefty Ethernet or something.
It's when you nationalize the sausage factory in the forest. No, if you remember, we did an episode on like tree planting long time ago. I can't remember the number, but essentially, what happens with little tree planting schemes is like, yes, there's a lot of saplings that get put in the ground, but then nobody looks after them, and then they all die. But because everybody's had a PR shot, so it's fine.
Yeah.
And when I say future-proofing, I mean like not just putting in the saplings, but actually looking after them and making sure they reach maturity.
Doing the bare minimum, putting up a fence, etc. Very good.
Exactly. But cool. That was all a bit too much work, so we've also decided, to underfund it to the tune of 380 billion a year. Don't worry about it; it'll be fine.
Probably fine.
Also, we are getting into the carbon credit business. We have a very special magic formula that's only available on the £500 a month Patreon tier. So come see us.
Yeah, a little known fact: if you subscribe to a £500 a month Patreon tier, you get 500 tons of carbon credits, like along with it.
Yes.
Join and see.
Yeah, it's because you
may not be valid everywhere, but
it's because you are buying future episodes that we then don't have to make, and then because it's like,
oh fuck me.
Because we normally not a lot of people know this, but like we normally run our episodes on like bunker oil. We record in a big cruise liner, so if we don't have to put the big cruise liner out to sea, we save a ton of carbon.
Yeah, we bought it off those libertarians that fucked it up.
Before we move off this story, do you actually need to finish that like cover your ass thing that I interrupted earlier?
Well, we can. I'm just going to say,
please do it.
yeah. I'm just going to say, according to a press release that the Guardian put in as well, Vera does not agree with the findings of the studies and says that it has flawed methodology and that it's actually wonderful and that, they spoke to all the orangutans and other animals in the forest, and they couldn't be happier.
Excellent. I feel that we're covered.
Feel absolutely secure. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, that's all right then.
Well, let's talk about something that's not all right. So, some people, and the horrible bastards guilty of this know who they are. Some people have asked us to cover certain goings on, and why anyone wants the jaded and fucking just dead opinions of myself on this fucking topic, I don't know, but I will relent. Fine, let this be a lesson.
You're entering the vicinity of an area adjacent to a location. The kind of place where there might be a monster, some kind of weird mirror. These are just examples. It could also be something much better. Prepare to enter the Scotpol door.
Do you know, David, when you started talking at the beginning, it's just kind of personal I am. I started feeling bad, so I'm like, is this about me? But as you went on, I became sure that, this is about me. And as you kept going, I felt, and I don't feel bad about it, actually. So great, grand, here we are.
It's not just about you.
It is bad, and you should feel bad, actually.
Yeah,
I'm going to sit back and have a snack while you just crack on.
We're not going into mad detail on this, but so there's two things that are going on just now, which are related and intertwined, but separate. The first thing we need to talk about is the GRA reform that's gone through, which is the Gender Recognition Reform Scotland Bill. It's been covered elsewhere plenty of times as to what it does, but effectively the bill makes the process of getting a gender recognition certificate easier, mostly by demedicalising the process and also cutting down the amount of time it takes to go through the whole thing.
Doing what a lot of other European countries have done without any problem whatsoever.
And even then, still not as good as a lot of them.
I thought it just put public toilets on like the free Patreon.
So, a gender recognition certificate is basically just an amending document that supersedes the gender field specifically on your birth certificate. That's basically all it does.
It is bureaucratic Tipex, basically.
Yeah. You don't need it for anything that you wouldn't need your birth certificate for. Now, that's obviously not much, but the things that you do require it for are like big life events, such as getting married or dying. And, other administrative pish, like perhaps you require it for a passport with the right gender on it.
This is very bad news for trans people in Scotland, as they are now allowed to die, which they were not allowed to before because they didn't have the right to.
You might want to hold on there, Rob.
God,
Carry on, David.
So, like, a bit of history on how this has all gone about. About 6 years and at least 2 consultations since the entire process of this was finally started, and then stopped and started and stopped and started again, which, remember that for a bit later on. We get to the bill finally passing in Holyrood after a bunch of wrecking amendments were fought off one by one towards the end of December.
To be clear, it was meant to take like 1 day to pass, and it took 3.
Yeah, which no one minded because of the sheer fucking timescales involved. It took less than 1 epoch for that section of it to go through, so it's fine.
And also, they didn't just do regular sessions. They had to go to, like, the middle of the night.
Essentially,
in order to just get through it. So real nuts kind of levels of reckoning going on.
It's easily one of the most scrutinised pieces of legislation that's ever gone through the Scottish Parliament, like, easily.
I honestly think it might be the most scrutinised piece of fucking legislation that's ever gone through the Parliament.
Yeah.
Like,
Reminder,
one that's more scrutinised.
Reminder, we went through a process to try and become an independent country once already in the last few years, and this was more scrutinised than that. So, like...
Genuinely, yeah, actually.
That's actually, yeah.
Yeah. So, because this is a devolved piece of legislation, it can't have anything in it at all which would be outside the scope of the Scottish Parliament. If it does, it kills the bill stone dead straight there. It just it's no longer competent for the Scottish Parliament to be doing it, so all of it disappears rather than just the parts of it that are outside the scope.
Mm-hmm.
A bunch of those wrecking amendments were specifically things that would add in mad shit that the Scottish Parliament could not do, and that's why they were wrecking amendments. But none of them passed with the bill. It was deemed competent, voted on, and put through on the 22nd of December for royal assent, which is just the bit where the King says that's fine after Westminster passes it on to him, which is normal with a capital N, obviously, but also with a small n, because that's just how all bills work. Mm-hmm. Fast forward now to the 16th of January, and the UK government has blocked the royal assent of the bill by using Section 35 of the Scotland Act 1998.
So I'm going to jump in here. There's something you should know about the Scotland Act, in that there's Section 33 and Section 35. Section 33 is if a bill is not legally competent to proceed, it can be referred and struck down. Section 35 is very specifically if they feel the bill would have an impact on reserved matters.
Yes.
And the question of whether or not this bill is reserved is the kind of key thing here. Is it something that Westminster said, no, you're not allowed to do something about? And boy howdy, is this going to get very tedious very quickly.
There are a bunch of... There's a whole fucking bunch of arguments. Some of them fucking ridiculous. Some of them just, like, tedious, and there's probably an element of something to them, but it's for a court to work that shit out.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Also, this is not a legal podcast.
Yeah. We're not going to be fucking diving into the depths of it all. But, whatever. It's now been referred off to the courts. That's it. There's nothing until the courts come back and say whatever they say. They will probably say it's fine to Section 35, actually, because that's what the courts do. Like, we've seen this already, because there was a question about an independence referendum not too long ago. Remember that in a minute. That's just how it's going to work.
On matters of sovereignty, the courts don't like to fuck with Westminster, specifically on matters of sovereignty. And Westminster's put forward like a whole big document, and I'll be honest with you, I read through it all. 90% of it is complete and utter horse shit in like won't stand up in court way. But the thing about courts is you get to walk in with a shotgun and fire, and as long as one pellet lands, then it's a good argument. And they've got one, which is that this is genuinely the argument I think that's going to carry, and it's ludicrous. So check this out. Because the bill on equalities was drafted after the bill on changing your gender in the UK. It took into account the provisions of that bill and was based on how that bill worked. And although the bill on gender equalities is reserved, and the Scottish Parliament explicitly hasn't touched that, their argument is because they've touched the gender one that came first, which isn't reserved, but which the second one was drafted based on, that means that they're actually impinging upon a reserved area. And if that sounds like horseshit, it probably is, but the court's probably going to rule that it's fine, that carries. So, yeah.
If you suddenly started having a nosebleed, that's normal, don't worry about it.
Yeah. As a frequent haver of nosebleeds, let me reassure you, this one is a perfectly legitimate cause. Actually, yeah, sure.
The whole state of affairs basically fucking sucks, right? It's probably going to come back with a fuck you to the Scottish Government from the courts, in which point there's nothing they can do because it would be illegal. Like, fuck you, that's it. They could try and draft some other legislation. It will go through the exact same process. It'll probably take about another 6 to 12 years for it to be attempted again. Whatever. It just fucking sucks, and trans people are being battered about. It's collateral in a constitutional argument at this point. That's all that is.
It's not even constitutional. I mean, yes, it is, but it's kind of incidental. It's a cultural war argument the Tories are doing for electioneering. That's basically about what this is. Yeah,
but in practice it is constitutional. But yeah, there's many reasons behind it, and I dare say there's some elements of constitutional wrangling and power flexing, and I'm just going to go on to that in a wee second. But the transphobia is absolutely a fucking element of it, 100%, yeah. So this brings me on to the second thing, which is the Scotpol of it all, which is the bit that we all fucking hate.
and yet some of our depraved listeners love nothing more.
Oh, what's wrong with yous? Lots of people, right, since this happened, have been very quick to look for any positives whatsoever to the circumstances which have now befallen us. This must be the end of the Union, surely. Section 35 is unprecedented in its use. This is authoritarian. The lie of the Union has been exposed, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
May I put it to you? So fuck.
Yep.
Every single bit of that is either hopium, copium, or a very fucking delectable mix of the two. Nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. With regards to independence, nothing has changed.
No, and we sort of go back to because this is when was it, a few months ago, when we also glossed over Nicola Sturgeon saying, yeah, we are doing a new referendum, and then they went to the court, and the court said no. It's if that sort of happened, and then I also don't think that the SNP is gonna go to the mattresses for trans people. I think this is a good bill. Don't get me wrong. But,
Yeah, it would have been nice if it had passed. It would have been very nice if it had passed. It would have made a difference to quite a lot of people and would have been good. But the only thing that's fundamentally changed, and by fundamentally changed, I mean, I'm talking about since that fucking referendum result and the one question became the only question, the SNP now have significantly less leverage than they used to, and that's entirely by their own doing. So
interesting. Go on.
Well, they've entirely defined the threat of a referendum by putting it through the courts.
Oh, right, no, about referendum. Okay, yeah, sorry. So my brain crossed there and I was thinking about the gender bill, but carry on.
No. So the threat of a referendum has been completely defined. The SNP have no leverage. All they've got now is a plan to hijack the next election and say, actually, it's a vote on this. And that's all they've got. It doesn't change anything legally. They know it doesn't change anything legally, so all it is an appeal to some form of higher power. I don't know. They're very much still in the question mark phase of that plan. But it's going to bring us to that exact same point. There's no legal substance. Nothing will have legally changed at that point at all. And if you're a party of law-shagging libs that won't take any radical steps, then you've got no further.
Let's for the sake of just argument, imagine that Nicola Sturgeon is visited by the ghosts of Scotland future, and she wakes up and paints her face with woad and decides she's gonna really go for it, and somehow bizarrely all her party just claps and goes along with it, right? In what circumstances isn't this just gonna end up like Catalonia?
There's none.
UDI?
There's none.
I've seen people online going, "Oh, it's a very different situation with the constitutional set." And I'm like,
it is, until it isn't.
Yeah, exactly, and it's like, the British government has already been talking about how we are a unitary state, like the Britain is, not like a alliance of nations which are bound together by common history, etc. We're a unitary state. Scotland's a part of that state. We're basically a region. And fundamentally, here's the problem. They have a lot of guns. We have the nuclear base on our territory. The nuclear base is of strategic interest to the Americans. In what fucking world do you think they're going to let us just go? Like, that's
even
what
right,
it ultimately comes down to.
I know what you mean, right? And it should be fairly fucking obvious, but it's never going to get to that point because libs won't let it get to that point. It's as simple as that. It's not going to happen. They won't do anything. If anything, the SNP and the Greens together have worked the Scottish Parliament in a position of being able to be acted upon with complete fucking impunity. There's nothing that they can do now at this point. The UK government can say and do whatever the fuck they like, and there's no threat anymore. There's nothing left. I mean, sure, that means
the only
any
threats
issues.
the only threats that are left are the ones that they will A, not issue, and B, not act upon, even if they did.
Exactly. So for all intents and purposes, there's nothing that they can do at this point other than just kind of be mad about it, which achieves fuck all because they won't do anything with any of the mad. I mean, this lays bare the issue of, like the UK government not taking into, into account the opinions of the Scottish people or whatever other way it wants to be framed. Fine. But it changes fuck all unless, like, on the off chance you are counting on a hung parliament. And even then, the Labour Party and the Tories will simply just say no. Like, they will just take a fucking minority government and collapse and have another election, as opposed to...
Well, I mean, the Labour government on this particular issue, so far as I can fucking see, will either side with the Tories or they will just abstain their way into the ground. Like, they just don't want to piss off Rosie fucking Duffield, is essentially so far as I can make out.
Yeah, pretty much. If we want a really fucking cynical take on this, right? A really fucking cynical take, and I'm not saying this is necessarily my take, but... if you wanted to be, you could say that the timing of all of this works in such a way purely to drum up support for independence and nothing else. Basically, we tried, right? It's you could say it's the usual fucking left-wing talk, but just useless liberal walk shit. They've had 6 years to fucking do this. It's been going through for fucking donkeys. They've needlessly delayed it, like, at least once, if not twice.
Yeah, I mean,
and now they've finally done it when their Bart's been shown to be nothing against fucking bite.
I'm gonna be knowing less about Scotpol than the two of you, but I'm gonna say that. Be charitable and say they didn't design it this way simply because it took fucking 6 years of consultation. So either they had a plan 6 years ahead and stack the dominoes in this particular way, which is just that's just unlikely.
I'm not. Like I said, I'm not saying
that's not happening.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that's what they've done from the start, but like I'm saying, they could have done this at any fucking point in the last 6 years. At least one of those fucking consultations was not required. At least one of them wasn't. So
can I jump in on this, David, just to kind of give a definitive little thing here?
Yeah, okay.
Fundamentally, this could have been done a long time ago and in a very straightforward way, but the SNP held off on doing it for internal political reasons. That's what it comes down to. And they kicked it into the long grass. And honestly, I think that if they had done this when it had first been on the cards and not kicked it into the long grass, I don't necessarily think the UK government would have bounced it back. Honestly.
Well, no, because again, they would have had that threat of a referendum behind them as well. Like, they would have had some sort of actual political capital to leverage. The other thing here is as well, that all of this puts, see all your fucking Alba MPs, all of them, I say. Fucking about 2 of them or some shit.
Yeah, I was going to say, I didn't know there were.
Yeah, those cunts and Joanna Cherry, other fucking turfy pro-independence voices, they're all in this really weird bind right now of any action owning them. Like, they can't get mad about the Section 35, but they also can't get mad about, the other side of it as well. Like, they either come out of this either being pro-trans rights or pro-Scottish independence. They can't have it as, one or the other. They've got to have both of them in this circumstance. So they look like dickheads, whatever they do. It's a very good position for the SNP and the Greens to be sitting in. And this is all coming at the low cost of
yes,
having a contentious political issue removed entirely from the Scottish Government's competence, and, you know, just the lives of trans people. But that's small stakes to a parliament that's quite happy to string them along for this fucking long. So I'm not saying this has all happened from the start and been planned out this way, but they could have timed this with like a couple of months fucking flipping it round, and it could have been a very different result. But they didn't. They fucked it. So, yeah, good job. And this is why we don't talk Scotpol.
Yep. Anyway, that's the door closed on Scotpol. See you in another 100 or so
Hold on,
episode.
wait.
Nope, it's gone.
Oh, no.
Door's closed.
James is trapped in the Scotpol dimension. How sad.
All I hear is bagpipes. All I taste is shortbread.
Anyway, speaking of preposterous state events and constitutional arrangements, so the first details-ish have come out about this year's everybody's favourite event this year. The new event that's going to heal the nation. I am talking, of course, about the coronation of King Charles III. There's been some events that have been leaked out or just given out by the palace, and may I say, whoo boy! Just as a taster, the code name for the coronation and the entire thing around it is called Operation Golden Orb. So apparently, and this is according to the Telegraph, there's going to be 3 days, so Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So there will be a bank holiday, apparently. And it will be a diverse coronation that brings the nation together in a 3-day celebration to reflect modern, multicultural Britain.
If there's one thing that's going to bring the nation together, it's something that is pro-royal family, but also pro-multiculturalism. That's definitely going to please like all sides. That
I'm trying to think of something witty to say, but all I've got in my head since you first said it, Rob, is sovereignty is stored in the orb. Like, that's all I've got repeating in my head over and over again.
That's a good. It's a good start. No, it reminds me nothing so much as that what they really want to do is like do the 2012 Olympics opening ceremony, but for the royal family. I think like that's all
yes. No, that actually, I'm entirely for this. If it's going to be a big multicultural,
going to push his mom's corpse out of a plane while dressed as James Bond.
No. That's not how you do it multiculturally. If you're going to do it multiculturally, you get the pallbearers from Ghana, and they can do another funeral for Prince Philip.
No, actually how you do it is you get the last living survivors of the Mau Mau uprising, and then you push them out of a helicopter above the ocean. Oh,
that sounds more British, yeah.
Apparently, at first, this was like from before the Christmas break. It was supposed to be what palace sources called a cut-price coronation because of the cost of living crisis. But apparently, we've changed our mind. It's now going to be a full-fat event designed as an advertisement for the UK and showcase the very best of the country on the world stage.
Jam it up your fucking piss tube.
Sorry, it's Prince Charles #NotMyKing decided this. Like, there was an early story and then it mysteriously vanished, which is that, they'd been saying, we should do like a, restricted one. And then Prince Charles was like, no, absolutely not. I get coronated once. Fuck the poors. We are doing a big, like, shebang. And that's it. So, enjoy the gold.
James, I don't think you fully understand it. Concessions have been made. There's not going to be 8,000 people in Westminster Abbey. There's going to be 2,000. So I think you'll agree that that's a sacrifice the Crown made, and we should all be thankful for it. But the other concessions have been made. Some of them, I must say, to my sadness. So on Saturday, May 6th, we get this.
None of these cuts are going to be the ones we want made. So.
No, because essentially they've all been made like in service to like people don't have the attention span to sit through like a 3-hour ceremony on television anymore, so they want to cut it down to like an hour and a half, 2, and like cut out.
Is that right? Did it not just occur to them to just unplug everyone's fucking internet for the day?
No, you just put a mobile game in one corner and Family Guy in the other, and this on the other half, and it'll be fine.
So some of this is quotes from like various
Channel 5 is Channel 5 showing the Emoji Movie again? That's what I want to know.
Perhaps Patrick Stewart's greatest moment, yes. Anyway, so I pulled some bits and pieces from various sources. The Monarch 74 has opted to wear military uniform rather than the traditional breeches and stockings worn by various predecessors, which is a great great shame, I have to say. Like, I would have enjoyed like more if you're gonna have this ludicrous farce of a fucking monarchy in the 21st century, you should do it like as idiotic as possible. Like, you should do it all the way down. Another thing in this vein, which has been cut to my great sadness, this is from the BBC. Elements of the service could be reduced, such as the paying of homage, and a claims office is currently looking at which roles should be included. Previous coronations have had historic roles such as the Rouge Dragon Pursuivant, Unicorn Pursuivant, and carriers of the Golden Spur and the White Wand. So I'm not sure we get to see those guys anymore.
I assume the claims office is just like a very obscure team working in the DWP.
No, it's like I was reading up on this in 52 or 53, whenever Elizabeth's coronation was. Because all this like archaic, stupid crap has never been sorted out because Britain has never had a proper revolution. Like there are all these weird like aristocratic families that have like claim to be the Rouge Dragon Pursuivant or the bearer of the White Wand. So they all want their role in the ceremony to be on the television to show that they still matter. So even in 1953, they had like also, they had a claims office that was presided over by, I think, like 21 judges to go over which, like, medieval historical idiot claim, like the Dukes of Flim Flam had to be a part of it.
This is the boring court management of Crusader Kings 3. This is the bit of the game I don't like.
I know,
okay.
But like this is, and again, sadly, the traditional presentation of gold bars, gold bracelets, gold spurs, and a robe has also been cut for brevity, and apparently also out of respect for people struggling with the cost of living.
I know. I'm raging that people don't deliver the gold bars to us anymore. Like, honestly, that has been one of the worst parts of the cost of living crisis. So it'd be very disrespectful to see him getting gold bars delivered to him.
I'm still upset we can't have that as an option on our Patreon either. That you can't sub with and just present us with gold bars every month.
I'd love to put the Patreon at the whims of the international mineral market.
Yeah. Also, I'm just, the longer you talk, Rob, the more I'm just hearing like the sounds of Boots Riley and his entourage coming over the fucking hill. Like, just goddamn. See, what's going to happen is they're going to do this page entry. They're going to say, "Oh, we're going to make all these concessions, right, so as not to upset the poorers too much." And if we're in a just world, we'll all be upset anyway, because their idea of, we can't have gold bars, that'd be too much. Anyway, how's the foie gras looking? Just like, it's just going to be completely out of touch pish.
It's pronounced foie gras, but, it's fine.
Get baited.
But, James, it's not all downsides and like cuts. It's, as I said, it will be a spectacle that both the palace and the government will hope showcase UK PLC as a great place to do business.
Oh, fuck off.
That's because one of the key learnings, this is from the Telegraph, from Operation London Bridge and Spring Tide, that's both the funeral and the period of mourning when Elizabeth died, were proved to be great advertisements for modern Britain. So apparently, after seeing the nation dance around in hysterics for 10 days,
fucking, how the fuck was that an advert? It was just fucking City 17 all over again, just more fucking...
Yeah, that was a pretty good advertisement of modern Britain, wasn't it, David?
Fucking hell, man. Look how many fucking peons we can get to line up against a fucking river.
Come to Normal Island, citizen. It's more dangerous here. Just fantastic. Love it.
I mean, we've shown, or like, the railways have shown that at least they could put all their apps in grayscale on the day. So think of the amount of ad space you could cram inside that app on the day of the coronation. Anyway, this is a line from the I don't know who briefed this, but this is an incredible line. It's from the same article in the Telegraph. The monarchy does exert great soft power, and this is the equivalent of an aircraft carrier when it comes to international relations.
Yes, it has to be constantly refueled by the poor drawn alongside it. But don't worry, it's got docking ports for your iPads.
Yeah, also, by the way, it
fantastic.
keeps flooding.
Yeah, that's why the fingers are swollen.
So then on Sunday, May 7th, there will be a star-studded concert, also featuring various amateur singers, brackets, the nation's faces and voices, as well as, I'm really curious to see how this is going to work, a virtual choir with singers from across the Commonwealth. You remember the Commonwealth? Still a thing.
Oh,
Not for fucking long.
nothing says star-studded concert like amateur singers.
Yeah.
But you can enjoy watching that over your and I assume that most of our listeners will be organizing one. There will be a coronation big lunch at which friends and neighbors will join forces to celebrate at street parties, which will take place on the same date. So
Is this at Gary Sandbrook's house? Is it?
Mate, it obviously isn't. He's only got 6 chips. That's not enough to feed everyone.
Yeah, but they're big enough. I mean, this is from CNN. The coronation big lunch helps you bring the celebration right into your own street or backyard, said, and this is the fucking job title and a half, Peter Stewart, Chief Purpose Officer at the event's organizing body, the Eden Project.
I mean, they absolutely do need someone to fabricate a purpose of a monarchy. Credit where credit is due. Hardest working man in the nation.
I have never seen a job title I have wanted more.
This sounds like a real weekend to stay at home for.
Well, it's okay, Jamie. You can stay at home on the weekend, but on Monday, we will be asking you to leave the house because Monday will be the day of the Big Help Out, a volunteer scheme devised in tribute
Will
to
it
His
fuck
Majesty.
us like?
So essentially, Monday, May 8th is just a rehashed version of Clean for the Queen. That's just what that is. Or Clean for the King, I should probably say this time.
That doesn't rhyme, though.
Yeah, so lots to look forward to in 2023. I think we can all agree.
Clean bracket spring for the king. Is that anything?
Yeah, I don't know. We'll workshop it. We'll get our chief purpose officer involved. Yeah. By the way, Alistair, because you're not here this episode, you are now Praxis Cast's chief purpose officer. By the way, just as an FYI.
Already expressed my interest in the role, and it's just whisked away from me. Fucking typical.
What I loved about it, David, is you said there was no job I'd rather like more, and I'm just like, really? I thought commissar was very appealing to you.
Yeah.
What is a commissar if not a chief purpose officer? What does the commissar give you? Purpose.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Yeah, fair. Okay.
Yeah, but does the commissar ever organise a big help out to eat out or whatever the fuck we're doing on that Monday?
Only when rations run low.
Speaking of rations running low, by the way, I thought we should return to an old favourite. I think maybe at this point, maybe we could call her our unofficial Praxis Cast reporter. There was yet another delightful piece right before the end of the end of 2022 by Helen Kerwin-Taylor.
Is this about the windowsill bees?
Yes, it's about the windowsill people again.
Get in.
The two contrasts of podcasting is Praxis.
Yeah, but this time they're not in trouble. They're not necessarily in trouble. They're all doing their bit.
Sorry, I love Rob for that. You just said, "Oh, we're not necessarily in trouble." I mean, trouble. It's like got something on the brain there, Rob. You know that whole question of like, hey, do you think when the bell rang, did Pavlov think, "Oh, I need to feed the dog"? Is that kind of what's happening to you with your truffle training?
Something along those lines, yes. This is the article title: How even the super rich are scrimping in the winter of discontent.
Oh.
Eat my shit and hair.
There's a new blood sport in vogue with the truly wealthy. Beat your friends to the biggest bargains in town.
Oh my god! Oh, this is going to be a belter. All right, I'm strapped in. Let's go.
So
the biggest bargains in town. Like, they're all fighting over like 20p tins of beans in fucking Aldi or some shit.
No, it's clearly it's that scene in Action Man where they're trying to get the figurine from the store. Absolutely, 100%. Except it's going to be, what was it again, Rob? Foie gras, was it?
Hey, I'm only doing that once. Anyway. Anyway, so I've cut a few paragraphs out of this because the paragraphs I cut were almost literally like advertisers for designers Helen Kerwin-Taylor is working with, and like they're not getting ad on our podcast. The latest sport...
God forbid that our audience might, give them some business. This seems like exactly the sort of people we'd want to market to anyway. God damn.
The latest sport in smart circles is competitive thrift. As inflation soars, global investments nosedive, and the war in Ukraine continues, cutting back has become the in thing to do, even for those who never need look at their bank balances.
We need to
ignore
these people as a matter of urgency.
I think there was a report, it was released with Davos, so I think that would have made it Oxfam or Amnesty International, probably. Well, usually it's Oxfam, that like, I think in the last 2 years, the top 1% of like wealthy people in the world hoovered up like 2/3 of all growth in the world. Like, they've just made out like bandits, but don't worry, they're all doing their thing. We recently spent a weekend in the country with a hedge fund couple. The house was big, the garden billowy, suggesting the planting of something like Tom Stuart Smith. There was recognizable art, but what did they choose to draw our attention to? The curtains. We just bought these at a fire sale in Mayfair, they said, showing us swaths and swaths of window dressing. We found a seamstress and she readjusted them. The specimens were made of silk and garishly tasseled, but who cares? What mattered, quite obviously, was the money they'd saved.
I fucking hate everything about this. Really, really fucking, like, making my shit itch. The idea of these, like, fucking rich cunts just, like, pretending that they have to save money. Oh, we saved like, £5 on some curtains that cost 10 grand. Oh, aren't we thrifty? It's the cost of living, don't you know?
It's a kind of performance where essentially to prevent the poor from getting too uppity, they're doing this whole performative, oh, everyone's suffering right now. It's not just you, when it is just us.
I mean, I got strong whiffs of like Marie Antoinette dressing up like a milkmaid, yes.
Yes.
This is them treating, the little voucher booklets that you sometimes get posted through, and it says there's so many hundreds or thousands of pounds of savings in it. This is them trying to 100% the savings. They're just going out and buying shit they don't fucking need so that they can say, I saved X amount of money on this.
Do you think, though, that Marie Antoinette ever used the phrase, 'cause he lives?
On another occasion, recently, I visited a friend in her Chelsea home, newly finished by a world-famous interior designer. It was the IKEA rolling cabinets and flea market finds, repainted and reworked, that she pointed out. My friend went to great lengths to explain what she had sourced from where, how that oversized light above the countertop was actually from an old operating theatre, suggesting that...
Sorry. Customized IKEA furniture is their idea of thrift.
I know. I just like the idea that this designer fucking fleeced somebody. He's like, no, it's very chic to have IKEA, and just like tacked it on for like 5 million extra pounds.
Well,
how are they customizing the shit from IKEA though? They got like one of those sharks, but with sunglasses on or something.
Just, I love the idea of like, well, obviously IKEA is tat for the pops, but if we, put some nice paint on it, etc., then maybe we'll make it serviceable, and it'll make us kind of jolly, like almost like we're one of them. Yes. And meanwhile, everyone else is like, God, I wish I could afford to go to IKEA right now.
It doesn't really matter to the shopper that the flea market.
I could really go for some meatballs now that you mention it. Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, what are those hot dogs? I do like the IKEA hot dogs.
They're so good. Like,
are any of them open late? Could we just bin this off and go to IKEA?
I'm pretty. I could possibly make it actually.
Can I put the flight on
David.
the pod account?
Yeah, we'll get David's closest he can go, right, David? So that's 3 meatballs, 1 hot dog, and
no, come on, that's not even. Like, the hot dogs are way more cheap.
I'll have an end table.
It doesn't really matter to the shopper that the flea market finds have been restored and lacquered and now cost more than they would new. What matters is that they can crow about it that it was sourced without saying by whom. I go to great lengths to find this secretaire for €100 at auction and then send it to be restored, says interior designer turned shopkeep Honor Riley. Clients absolutely love it. I use inherited pieces and IKEA finds. If you can mix it, you look so much more involved than your friends.
What this is basically showing is, look, I have time luxury. Is what they're currently status competing on. It's like, I have the time to do this shit, unlike you, because obviously that implies I've got the money to be able to do this shit, unlike you, my friend. And fuck him, just fuck him so much.
Such objects find their way into interiors similar to the Hotel Heckfield Place in Hampshire, with clay walls, bowwork lime wash, wrinkled linen, and creaky oak floors. Redesigned (brackets, it was all shiny before) by Ben Thompson, some kind of interior designer. It's a modern rendition of the Belgian decorator Axel Vervoort, who strips everything back to the bare bones (brackets, including removing most of the client's furniture along the way). If you're very wealthy, subscribe to our 500 quid Patreon and we will come to your house and take most of the furniture away. That's we'll swap it out with some IKEA.
We'll throw in the bees on the windowsill for like a treat on the way out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe change any light bulbs you've struggled with.
The £500 tier, by the way, it did used to be £1,000, so there's a £500 saving to be made there. So
that's true.
That's true.
Do you know, there's something I learned recently, like a thought that was introduced to me and it struck me pretty hard, which is that
I get interested first too.
Not that kind for once. No, it was the reason the rich can. They've got this whole minimalism aesthetic is that it's a sign of wealth. Because if you're rich, then you can afford to just go buy whatever you need. You don't need to hold on to something in case you need it later. And that kind of resonates with me because I'm a terrible hoarder of just stuff. Not like, rubbish or anything, but just stuff that I might need one day down the line. And
you might need the rubbish as well, though. You should hoard that too.
What, to pelt it at whatever mine internet kind of...
For the coronation.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, so this whole minimalism thing is yet another, conspicuous display of consumption. Essentially, it's just it's gilded, it's at a remove, it's it's not quite as raw and in your face.
It's a far cry from the gold wallpaper and rattan furnishings of the Downing Street yesteryear. No one wants to
shut the fuck up about the wallpaper. Shut the fuck up about that fucking wallpaper.
That's possibly the best of the bridge we've done, Rob. That worked quite well.
I'm so fucking tired of this.
No one wants to be seen to be spending, says Riley. It feels out of touch and profligate. The appeal of the rugged
what you should do is give me your money, and I'll do I'll spend on your behalf, and then you won't look fucking gauche or whatever the fuck you're worried about, you cunt.
Yeah, but Jamie, how can you be so uncouth? Don't you know there's a cost of living crisis on at the moment? You can't just
years of practice, mate.
The appeal of the rugged farmhouse look is that no one knows if you spent 10 quid or 10,000.
Okay.
Anyway, I've cut some paragraphs because it's boring at designer advertising. But let's get back in. Spending less on fashion has long been a trend, but here too, that imperative is urgently felt. Last summer, I donned my first ever Zara shirt in hottest pink. The instant response from my friends who have never shopped at Zara either, I must get that too, practically created an internet outage. Why? Because saving money makes you happier.
I wish I could go and shop in Zara right now. Like, my coat that I really like is from Zara, But nope, can't fucking afford it right now. But here's these cunts going, oh, isn't it nice for a jolly laugh to step down and rough it among the poors and go to Zara and IKEA? Just fuck these guys.
Yeah, give it another 6 months and they'll be doing the same thing, but about like Greggs or something.
A study conducted by Claremont Graduate University found that when you offer people the opportunity to save money, they experience a greater boost in oxytocin levels than they do when they receive a gift.
Widen your fucking group, like.
Yeah.
Honest to God, that's a fascinating study because I bet you there's some fucking selection bias going on there.
Put me in, coach.
What? Actually, right, sorry. What kind of a cunt feels
The Stanford
more
savings experiment.
No, but like, what kind of fucking cunt? Like, when they get the choice between, you could save a little bit of money, gets like rock hard, versus someone who's like, hey, I got you this thoughtful gift. Like, what kind of a dickhead would rather save money than get a thoughtful gift from someone? Like,
You could like
fucking
just get
ridiculous.
people's heads explode like in scanners if you give them like a coupon book then, because it's both. Also, not to throw
Stanley
shade on what I'm
Milgram just
sure is
giving
like
everyone a present on the way out of the experiment.
Also, not to throw shade on what is undoubtedly a worthy institution, but I'm not sure the Claremont Graduate University is really, the place to go for these.
Certainly,
in-depth
I've never fucking heard of it.
discovering.
I mean,
It sounds like a made-up school, like where they would train X-Men.
like, maybe they have some worthy stuff going on, but I bet you there's some selection bias in who they've got going, attending, and in the surrounding areas. So,
Yeah, it's only people with like lasers for eyes or who can walk through walls.
yeah, that kind of thing. Everyone knows that Professor Xavier is notoriously tight-fisted, and so he commissioned research to match his biases.
Telekinesis, but only for things that are 20% off or more. Discovering a cheaper alternative to everyday staples.
I'm just picturing
such
you
as,
have to team that X-Man up with another X-Man whose special power was like firing price stickers.
No, actually, you're missing a point. It's Nightcrawler on the Black Friday Day rush. Like, he's unstoppable, just fucking bamfing around and grabbing the deals.
Discovering a cheaper alternative to everyday staples such as food is a head rush, even if it's only temporary. When we hosted
Why is an alternative to food? Sorry,
cheaper alternatives. Cheaper alternatives.
Or
James.
cheaper alternatives, right? Sorry, I'm just like, have you eaten cardboard now? What?
Bees, windowsill bees.
Turns out these cattails are really nutritious.
Putting them all on like a cocktail stick and roasting them over a candle.
Sauteed in their own honey for irony.
When we hosted a party, we went to Aldi to get the champagne, says a friend who never usually shops for food herself.
Jesus fucking Christ.
It was
Enough. That sentence just got worse the longer it went on.
Oh, don't worry about it. It's still. Let me keep going.
Sure,
for you.
no, hang on.
It was
Surely, if these fuckers have gone to Aldi, they've seen the middle aisle. Like, what did they react? How did they cope with the middle aisle of fucking Aldi? That's the article I want to fucking read here.
people like having. Just like having seizures in front of the Aldi middle aisle. That's your local landlord.
I don't understand who got the batteries right next to the mouthwash. It makes no sense at all. It's fantastic.
It was delicious, and it put us all in a good mood just knowing that. Aldi and Lidl have become the mainstay of wealthy thrifters, so worthy of mockery that TikTok videos now satirize them. They go slumming to the budget supermarkets with friends as a sort of cultural outing. Clive Black. This is surprising that somebody wants to
This is some Antoinette shit. This is some Antoinette shit. I'm sorry. This is constructing her own fucking Aldi as a bit. Just like, yeah, okay. Dressing up. Forget the milkmaid shit. Is getting one of the vests and going behind the till and doing the checkout for their rich mates. Just like, what?
Clive Black, a retail analyst at city broker Shaw Capital, calls the big swing
That's a
to
real
shops.
job.
Calls the big swing to shops such as Tesco, Aldi, and Lidl an unnatural trade. They are gaining the footfall that in normal times I don't think they would get, he says. A Lidl insider tells me that its dark chocolate with caramel pieces is a high net worth bestseller.
Are we experiencing the gentrification of Aldi? Is this going to have economic consequence for the rest of us?
Probably not.
Yes,
but
they're doing it ironically, which is worse. It's ironic gentrification. I hate it.
It's only apparently the dark chocolate with caramel pieces that's being gentrified, so I think the rest still seems safe for now. It seems only yesterday that Waitrose worshippers were being mocked by Michael McIntyre. Truly, that's a fucking fate worse than death.
Worst
That's
person
a
you know.
big cut.
As if fucking Michael McIntyre isn't the worst middle class cunt on this island.
Yeah.
Credit where credit's due. Michael McIntyre's a cunt, and he is middle class, but I don't think he's the worst middle class cunt. In fact, there's some stiff competition for that, Jamie.
There's one way to find out.
Yeah.
Thunderdome. Now, the boast is
Luring him
which...
into the Thunderdome by disguising it as an Aldi or a Lidl.
Actually, that's not a bad thing. I like the idea of a self-populating gulag.
Just a series of unmarked vans driving through the Cotswolds with a big sticker on the back saying coupons inside, and just seeing who we can fucking dredge up.
We'll get a fucking brilliant book out of it, Gulag's Aldi, don't you? We'll probably be following before long.
Now, the boast is which stall at which farmer's market sells the cheapest British cheese. I always get discounts at Lidgate, says a culinary friend, a Holland Park stalwart. I don't know what that is, because I have a word with the butcher. I don't know what Lidgate, whatever. I don't know what any of that means.
That sounds like a really old timey euphemism. Like, you coming down the pub tonight? Oh, I can't tonight, mate. I've got to have a word with the butcher.
But if that's part one of the code, what the hell is part two? Getting discounted Lidgate? Is that like some other? Is that like a once a year thing? Is that only on your birthday?
You only find out what that means after you've seen a man about a dog.
Yeah.
I'm just hung up on the phrase culinary friend, this idea that I've got a friend, but they're solely for culinary purposes. Like, that's a class indicator if ever there was one.
Competitive thrift is insider, and that's the key to its appeal. After all, successful people enjoy winning, even if that's just saving a few quid on bubbly and chocks. Not a week goes by that I don't get invited to a sample sale. The outnet pollutes my phone with clearance sales daily. Even if you
sample sale.
Even if you
sorry, sample sale.
Yeah. Sorry, what did you never?
Like, these are the people that think they're saving big, but they're buying samples.
Yes.
Are these not,
Even if
samples not usually given freely?
No. It's like the samples. What the hell is this?
Is this a
like
rich thing?
A thimble full of goose fat rather than an oil drum.
Oh, right, okay. See, when I think we're talking shops and samples, I just assume like some really grotty fucking
going back
milkshake.
to the guy with the fancy new cheese sticks, like 6 times wearing different hats that you've stolen from the fucking clothing section. Yeah,
what I love
we've
about
all
this,
played
Jamie,
that game.
The experience you just described is pretty much universal to us. I'm assuming Rob as well, but it'd be fucking alien to these people that it's like we're talking about right now.
Sending their butler back in
they
6
were being
different
fleeced.
hats.
There's a guy just selling leather jackets so that you can go back up to the samples guy.
Even if you shop at Bicester Village, you only go with the additional discount coupons that are bestowed upon the initiated. So apparently there's a secret world of like really expensive food shops, I guess, where you have to be in the know to get a discount coupon. That's the worst fucking thing of it.
I'm having a look to see, right, Bicester Village, browse all boutiques. Oh yeah, there's bunch of these here that I just don't fucking recognise, and the ones that I would never shop in. So that's cool. Oh, they've got a Clark's, never mind.
Fashion is where the thriftiest of competitors excel. Zoe Swen, I hope I pronounced that correct, a fashion writer and brand consultant, says the mood has shifted from priceless, unfun, dry clean only minimalism of The Row and Celine to the grungy look of the 90s with messy eye makeup to boot. Brackets, Balenciaga's romp through the dystopian mud at its Paris show in October gave us all an inkling of what's to come. And if you don't remember what that is, because of course you don't, because that's the kind of brain you reserve for people who do your podcast. You remember last year, Balenciaga, which is this incredibly expensive brand, they sold exclusive pairs of extra destroyed high-top sneakers that cost $1,850 a pair and came pre-shredded, pre-stained, and graffitied with the brand written on with a Sharpie on the side.
Was this before or after they did all the child Satanism I heard about on Twitter?
The what?
It was them that got like fucking chased by the QAnon lot.
Yeah, they did some really weird ads with kids in it. That was really fucking weird.
Oh, I didn't even know that. I just I know there was like QAnon people talking about like fucking the fashion show being Satanist or something.
No, it was
it was proof that Hillary Clinton murdered all those children in that fucking pizza house.
It was specifically they did a series of ad campaigns. They were selling like teddy bears. I'll put a picture for you in the chat so you can have a look. They sold teddy bears dressed in what can only be described as BDSM inspired outfits, and then sold those to kids. So then, of course, the QAnon people went fucking mental.
Oh. Huh.
Of course, but here comes, unsurprisingly, the turn. Of course, there are things that even a recession won't change. Ladies may forgo Botox injections, but never their very expensive face cream habit. They will, however, tell their friends how much they love the cheaper beauty brand that is a TikTok favorite. It goes without saying that the wealthy will sell off one of their 4 houses long before they give up the private schools, private doctors, and most of all, expensive lawyers and tax advisors.
So
I've got this one
also
weird
superficial.
trick that would allow them to do all of that.
Yeah.
Is it give it to Jamie?
Yes.
Thrift, whether necessary or not, also reminds us of our grandparents and parents who actually lived through war. It's not a coincidence that the latest cookbook...
I don't think our parents actually lived through war.
Well, hers probably did. She's like 55 or 60 or something like that. So I'm imagining hers might have, but then they were kids or something. So fucking who knows? It's not a. This is such a great paragraph. It's not a coincidence.
It's always good when you get the giggles before you've read it.
It's not a coincidence that the latest cookbook being passed around by book club recently was not Yotam Ottolenghi, but by the late American food writer M.F.K. Fisher. How to Cook a Wolf, which was first published in 1942, includes a chapter called How to Stay Alive.
How to Cook a Wolf.
Yeah, I know.
How is that relevant to 21st century Britain?
Well, I mean, if thrift and like being conservative with energy of food is just an attitude to you, then you of course
Are they
should
just
do
like
this weird
fucking
shit.
taking their SUV on a raid through the little safari park?
It offers top tips on how to use every minute of oven heat (brackets the warming up and cooling off bits too), and how to cook sludge, a soup whose ingredients include 1 floppy carrot to last you a week.
It's not a very inclusive book. What about all those poor agate owners?
Well, I think that they have long warming up and cooling off periods, David. So I think they are actually the ones to.
They're usually measured in years.
A blackout shelf full of provision seems eerily relevant, (brackets, even though a tin of anchovies from Portugal costs 30 quid these days. That is true, by the way. That's super fucking annoying that anchovies have gotten fancy.
I mean,
For your own
Fine.
survival.
I was largely ambivalent about the rest of this article, but fucking anchovies, I'm going to become the Joker.
A lot of the thrift discussion is about what we don't do. Ladies who lunched now meet for coffee. Ladies who shopped now repair what they already own. At places such as The Restory, or else watch a YouTube how-to video and spend the evening darning a rug. Joanna Bacon...
I was previously unaware of the existence of Top Hat YouTube.
Again, it's a whole market we could get into. Why do we waste our time on Twitch when we could get into how to darn a rug? Is that a thing that people actually do? I genuinely don't know. I am asking.
I don't fucking... Let's assume that these cunts do.
Joanna Bacon, managing partner at an architectural firm, disguises her cashmere sweater's mothholes with furry pom-poms.
How fun.
She really missed her calling. There's a police officer if ever I've heard one.
The thriftiest blondes don't even leave the house. Picture a group of 7 women, many of them titled heiresses, sitting around a large kitchen table. Moving between them is an energetic French woman, bleach in one hand, dryer in the other. As they sip homebrewed non-Nespresso, the original being famously uneco, expensive, and not very good, she performs highlight magic. I enjoy it because it is a good way to catch up with friends for a few hours, says one client. Best of all, it only costs £100 a head. In a salon, it would be 4 times that.
What?
I hate these people so fucking much. I hate these people so much. Like,
When I delved further, I discovered that only 2 out of 10 women I consulted visit salons. The others have the salons visit them. Nothing makes you feel more punk than knowing how to look well-groomed for very little. I think that was the...
£100 a head is very little.
I think that's also what the punk movement was
I'll do it
about
for
in
cheaper.
the 80s. Exactly. Just let us come by with like a fistful of safety pins, and then we'll see about your more new punk and down market look. Most obvious is the way the super rich now travel. Gone are the 5-star poolside snaps. Instead, guest rooms are back in fashion. We redid ours recently in the full knowledge that many of our friends have sold their London homes only to find themselves outpriced in the capital. Brackets, everyone wants a sunny lateral 2-bedroom flat near a park these days. They still come to London, but rather than stay in an overpriced hotel, they take me up on the friend B&B offer. You're welcome to stay, but a small contribution towards the cleaner and the heating is appreciated. It's warm, it's generous, it's in the spirit, says Honor Riley. Sharing is how we get through the dark times.
Yeah, it's in the spirit to have people come stay at my, not a hotel, and ask them to contribute to the cost of upkeep. Have a mate over for a couple of nights, but you better put that £50 down on your way in the door. Knowing these guys is going to be more than that, frankly. Just...
But that's fine.
I mean,
it's
fucking
cargo
surreal.
cult shit.
It's
What?
just people like imitating what it is to be human. It's like when we have friends to come and stay and whatever, it's fine. They bring a bottle of wine, or they cook, or you do like a small something because it's nice and it's kind to. If you get to stay with somebody for a few days, to do something nice for them, or whatever. But it's like, this is just these freaks have just seen that and just like thought, oh, that's what humans do, and now we have to. The fashion of the season is to pretend that we are human beings, and it's like it's atrocious.
This is a cottage industry of the experience economy, but for POV Safari.
Yeah, and as you've been talking about this, there's a through thread through here, because you go back to that article quoted study about how it's better to save money than it is to receive a gift, right? I just don't know what this literally is it's doing. How about we do a gift economy but without the gift part? Because gift economies are like they're the lifeblood of friendship, etc. But let's just get rid of the gift part. They're fucking insufferable.
I mean, I was reminded, David, you were just saying the Pauper Safari. You remember it was a couple of years ago. Maybe they still fucking do it, because Davos, the World Economic Forum, has just been and gone. You remember they used to do like the day in the life of a refugee, where they put people in smocks and then just like ran them through a passport check or something. This is that
Jesus.
shit, but it's just. And I mean, I know I just talked about it during the article, but like the statistics of like 2/3 of all wealth generated in the last 2 years has gone to the 1%, and it's like, I can't remember the full statistics off the top of my head, but I think by any reasonable metric, like, we are now in a more unequal situation than like the Victorian age or the Gilded Age or any of like the ages of really extreme wealth inequality. And it's just, there's no pressure against it anymore. It's all fucking, now we just have fucking Rachel Reeves talking about growth and all this shit. And like, I don't like this shit. It breaks my mind that I can't. That on the one hand, I cannot see like this level of gross inequality continuing, but on the other hand, I can't see it stopping, and it's genuinely freaking me out. I don't know like how to, what the synthesis between those two things is. I don't know if there is one. It's just really fucking disturbing.
Yeah. Yeah, the position is not good enough to begin a manoeuvre yet, but then there's no manoeuvre really in sight, so... Yeah, everyone's just fucked. Everyone's just fucked, and I hate all of this, and I specifically hate this fucking writer.
I hate her too, but it is, I do think that reading her shit, we won't do it all the time, obviously, because, like, even us... trained professionals can only handle this much garbage so much of the time. But it is worthwhile to sort of keep an eye out on this shit to see, like, when these people take off with your money through fucking tax havens and tax cuts and all the other horseshit that they do to just get away with it, this is what they're doing with the fucking money. This shit.
This is exactly what the coronation is going to be like, This is their idea of like, yes, thrift. Let's make it cheaper and less expensive. So it's going to be entertaining. We'll just leave it at that, I guess.
Yeah, the concession of the super rich is that they won't have a white rod bearer or a dragon pursuivant. Whereas last year they would have had to. That's the concession that's being made to you. Anyway, I really
the concession is they'll buy a knockoff Colin the Caterpillar from Aldi. Rather than Marks and Spencer's.
Anyway, so next time you're in Aldi or Lidl and you see someone like having a full-on spasm attack in the middle aisle, check their shoes first. If they're Balenciaga, just fucking leave them there. If it's anybody else, call an ambulance. And that's your advice.
If it looked like they're wearing a lot of American kind of branded stuff, then it might just be a Republican who's had the vaccine. So,
Anyway, that's us for Broadcasting is Praxis today. David, shall we do some nice pluggy things?
Yeah, okay. Good thing I'm back here. You can get more episodes that are like this, but slightly better at patreon.com/praxiscast. You can get us on Twitch Wednesdays and Thursdays from evening time, some point. Twitch.tv/praxiscast. You can find out about that on Twitter, which is twitter.com/praxiscast. And you can get merch, which includes t-shirts and hoodies, etc., which is praxiscast.tmail.com.
Yep. And that's it.
Joining our Patreon gets you access to our mansion commune and all the terrible posting that goes on in there. So please do consider it.
Yeah. Also listen to Peace at Home.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.